And we're on again. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second of three. I'll explain what the third will be a little later. Some dual live streams we're doing as we lead up to the release of Riverpoint Studios' very first feature film, Afraid to Speak, which will be releasing this Monday, November 23rd. Today we're going to be talking with Taylor Olson, who plays Nolan in the film, the main lead character of the movie. And we're going to be talking everything about Afraid to Speak, the production, the lead up to production, specific scenes, and sort of everything, in between. And I'm very excited because Taylor, obviously was a huge part of this film, becoming what it was. And I owe him a lot for his hard work in this film. So yesterday, in case you missed it, we did a live with Paige Devon, who plays Ellie in the film. We're actually, you can see my screen right now. I'm uploading that to both YouTube and Facebook for those who didn't get a chance to see it. It's available now on Instagram, on this Instagram here. But if you didn't see it, or if you'd like to watch it somewhere else, it is uploading as we speak to YouTube and Facebook. And at 4 p.m. it will be up and ready for all to see. I'm just going to check something super fast before I move on here. Cool. So if you don't know, what is Afraid to Speak? What exactly is this Afraid to Speak that we're talking about? So Afraid to Speak is a feature-length film that we shot back in 2014. And the film is about a young man named Nolan, played by Taylor Olson, who we will be talking to in about 9 minutes. Actually around 8 minutes now. And it's about a young man dealing with depression. And in this film, depression is presented in a physical form, physical manifestation, played by Bob Mann. So it's instead of it being something that you don't see and something that isn't physical, it presents itself as a man, a human being that follows Nolan around. Things begin to look up when he runs into a childhood friend, Ellie, played by Paige Devon, who we talked to yesterday. But pretty soon, everything turns back to complete chaos and uncontrollable. What's the best word for this? Uncontrollable anxiety, fear, sadness, and every other emotion, as depression tries to ruin any bit of happiness that Nolan can find. We shot it in 2014 on a very low budget, and it's been a very long time coming to the point of it being released publicly and for free, which we're very excited about. So November 23rd, 8 p.m. Halifax time at riverpointstudios.com, the film will premiere, and it will be available forever for you to watch. And we hope you enjoy it. We're very excited to finally put this out. So why did it take 6 years, and what has sort of been the path to get here? We have released it a couple of times, or versions of the film a couple of times. One, we got to release it first at the Showcase Truro Film Festival, which was a huge thing for us. And following that, we did the Parsboro Film Festival about a year after. And in 2018, we had the opportunity to share it on Eastlink Community Television. So it premiered on Eastlink TV, and now it's available on demand for you to watch. But the film had never come out in a public way in terms of sort of a one-click, here you go, you can watch it, until now. So that is our sort of big release, the final version of the film. Over the years, I fixed a couple of things and sort of got it to the point where I really, really like it, and there's nothing that I want to go back and fix, which took a long time to get to because I'm very stubborn like that. But Monday's release will be the definitive, here's the film, here's the final film out for everybody to watch. So that's what this release is. What is coming on release day? So along with the film's about an hour and a half long. We will also be releasing a couple of bonus features. One, we will be putting out a deleted scenes featurette, which will be, I think, around 15 minutes, which showcases some of the scenes that didn't make the final cut. And that includes a introduction by me explaining sort of what the original context was of the scenes, what the original intent was of the scenes, and why they didn't make the final film. Along with that, we'll have an outtakes and bloopers reel, because despite the subject matter of this film being very serious, we had a lot of fun making this film, and a lot of that got caught on camera. So we're compiling about a 6 minute long bloopers reel for you to watch. Our biggest bonus feature, though, which will begin on release day and it will go out basically throughout the remainder of November and a little bit into December, is we have a documentary series called Opening Up, the making of Afraid to Speak. And that will be from initial idea to final release chronicle of how this entire thing was made, how we ran an Indiegogo campaign that didn't quite work out, how we got out of that to still make the film, how the film was shot, how it was released, and everything about this film chronicled in a documentary series that runs a bit over 2 hours long. Episode 1 of that, the prologue, will be available on release date, so November 23rd. The first part of that, the prologue, will be available. And then after that, periodically, we'll be releasing the other episodes. There are 10 chapters total, plus a prologue and an epilogue. And when we finish uploading those chapters, we're going to do a version of the story of the Opening Up documentary in sort of one file. So it'll be a feature-length film version. So if you do want to watch the whole thing in one go, you'll have that opportunity as well. So yeah, November 23rd. It's been a very long time coming, as I said. We began writing this in 2012 and shot it in 2014. Had a version of the film cut in 2015, better version of the film cut a little later in 2015. And then it's just been a very, very long ride to get to this point that we're nearing in 4 days on Monday, November 23rd, in which we put out the film fully for free for everybody to see. Worldwide, no restrictions, breaking down the walls. So today, as I said, and as the title suggests, we are talking to Taylor Olson, who plays the lead character Nolan in the film. You may have seen Taylor in the news recently or on your Facebook feed or in the papers or anything like that, because Taylor has been absolutely, and his team has been on an absolute hot streak with his film Bone Cage, which I got to see at the Atlantic Film Festival. Try that one again. That I got to see at the Atlantic Film Festival this year, Finn, and I was blown away by it. And I will be picking his brain a little bit during this just to talk about that, because it is a film that genuinely just floored me in the best of ways and excited me, inspired me, and everything else. Taylor is just an incredibly talented guy, and not only with acting, but with directing and writing. You know, he is the genuine definition of a jack of all trades, and I'm very, very excited to be able to talk to him today about sort of the early days, you know, as this sort of ragtag group of filmmakers got together and went out and made a film for less than $1,000, and just a lot of passion, time, patience, and everything else. I'm very excited to talk to Taylor as we lead up to the final release of Afraid to Speak. Before we jump in less than 2 minutes with Taylor, there's one more missing from the three main characters. We've talked to Paige, we're about to talk to Taylor. There's one more, and that is Bob Mann, who plays Depression, Sam, in the film. We will be doing an Instagram Live with him after the release of the film. We're just figuring out the final dates right now and times, but we will be doing an Instagram Live with Bob Mann next week, so that we finish off that sort of trinity of the Afraid to Speak lead cast, and I'm very excited. Bob, I think, kept us all sane with his incredible humor and just amazing performance. He was a huge part of all this. So it's about that time. I made this work yesterday. Let's see if we can make it work again today as we invite Taylor into the... See if this will work. See if we can't have technical difficulties. We got 1-0. We're at 1-0 right now. As well as we just sort of waited for this to work, we'll be talking a lot about a lot of different aspects of the film, because there is a ton of just stories that we could share. We could honestly do this for like hours upon hours. But some of the stuff we're going to be talking about today is sort of how we get into it, how the first time we heard about Taylor heard about the film, which I believe was on a short film we were working on. But I'm going to ask about that because I actually don't know specifically, as well as some of the amazing changes that both Taylor and Bob brought to the film. Because there's a major scene we'll be talking about in this. Without spoiling it, we won't get into the subject matter of the specific scene itself. But there's a scene in the film that on the day we completely changed the the script, like 180 the script, and it was completely for the better. So we'll be talking about that today. And just everything in between. I mean, Taylor was obviously a huge part. There he is. Hello.
Figured out technology. Wow.
Dude, like our generation should know how to do this, and I feel just completely clueless whenever I try and do this stuff.
That's exactly the position I was just in, being like, did I just mess this up? I was waiting.
Oh, it's good to see you, man.
Good to see you.
Yes, yes. Okay, so let's just jump right into this. I think I know the answer to this, but I'm not totally sure, so I'm gonna ask you. When was the first time you heard about sort of Afraid to Speak being a concept? Was it on Bring Me Home with Chelsea?
Yeah, it would have been the first night, I think, that we arrived at the cabin, actually. I think probably I asked what you were doing next after this, and then you said, and then I said, oh, I want to be in that, or something like that, probably.
That sounds about right. In between us
Yeah.
watching episodes of Guy on a Buffalo on YouTube, I'm sure.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Amazing.
so that's incredible. With the audition process, do you remember anything from that? Because I do have a slight story to share about that, which we've talked to in the past. But what do you remember from that sort of process?
I think I remember being used to having sides like earlier, and then having them for a while, and then coming in with them memorized, or like I knew the scene more.
Hmm.
And this was interesting because I think you sent it maybe the night before, was it, or something?
Probably.
And I feel like it was on purpose or something, but to like test us or something. But it was like it had the giant monologue in it. It had the big scene,
Yep.
and to do it just like off the page, like to us like have to lift it off the page and try to get there. It was like I remember being really nervous, and then doing it and forgetting everything that happened, and then leaving basically.
Well, it's funny to me too because we talked about this last night with Paige. Like I just forgot to tell Paige it was an audition, so she showed up. I handed her a script, and she just auditioned. So apparently, I really didn't know how the hell to handle auditions back then.
Oh, that's funny.
It's funny to me too because I remember when we did Bring Me Home, which was a film by Chelsea Come, sort of this fantasy horror thing. For whatever reason, I didn't see you as Nolan. And then the second you walked in and started performing, when you left the audition, I turned to Chelsea. I think we had more auditions that day, but I turned to Chelsea and said, that's Nolan. Like, we got it. There's no question.
Oh, that's cool.
You brought the most like intense, raw energy to it. And it just sort of it was Nolan. Like it took Nolan from here he is on a page to here he is breathing, living. He has a heart, and it was incredible. It really,
Oh,
really
that's
was
sweet of
incredible.
you, man. That's sweet of you to say. That's very nice. That's
Uh,
very nice.
what version of the script did you first read? Was it the one that was supposed to take place in the sort of lake area?
Yeah, it was supposed to take place down Barrington Way, right? Sort of like
Yes.
back your hometown sort of way. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
That was the original intent. What were your thoughts when you first sort of saw the script, saw what the subject matter was going to be about, and all that?
I was pretty terrified. Like I wouldn't have told you or anyone else that, I don't think. But it's pretty terrifying. I mean, this was essentially, other than Bring Me Home, this was my first movie, really. Like this, and I was doing Kaylee's Noon Gun at sort of the same time.
Yes.
I kind of go back and forth between shooting his on the weekend and shooting your film during the week almost. It was kind of crazy. But it was my first experience. So it was pretty, other than Bring Me Home, it was pretty daunting to portray someone who's dealing with, like depression in the way that Nolan's dealing with it. It was extremely exciting to take that on, and it's like, okay, here's a full feature, and you're in most of it, and you've never really been in a movie before, so like let's do it. It was exciting and terrifying. Yeah.
I tell you, the terrifying part never showed. You handled yourself incredibly well. Um, yeah, it's funny because it was the case of like, you know, Kaylee McLennan was filming on the weekends and we were filming during the week. It was just a sort of back and forth thing. It was so funny. What were your initial thoughts when you saw that our Indiegogo campaign was not exactly working out as we hoped?
I don't know. I mean, at that point, and still, like I would say, I still know nothing about filmmaking and everything. So I was like, oh well, that's pretty good. We'll just make the movie, right? Like I'm like, oh, we'll just get some cameras and stuff and just do it. Like I didn't. I mean, there was some like maybe some useful naivety or whatever about it. It was like, okay, well, that's too bad, but let's just do it. Yeah.
Well, I think it's that attitude that caused the film to be made. Do you remember the night in the audio studio?
Yeah, you were like, I can't do it. And it was about the Indiegogo, right? It was about like that it hadn't quite
Yes,
there wasn't enough.
I had brought you in to the audio studio because we were doing post audio for a short film that me and Justin, who was one of the audio engineers for this film, we were finishing up that. And I brought you in with the full intent of being like, well, we can't make this film. I'm sorry, man. And you and Justin both completely tag teamed, told me I was basically full of shit, and then we figured out a way to make the film anyways.
That's right. I do remember that. I don't remember the details of why you said you couldn't, but I remember that. Yeah. Yeah.
Without that, I don't think this thing ever would have been made. So I
Oh,
love
I doubt it.
it's just
I
that
doubt. I think 48 hours later, you would have been like, "No, we're still doing it." That's just my opinion, though. You know.
maybe. Filming the movie itself, do you have any moments that sort of stuck out as like your favorite or more rewarding moments of making the film?
There was that one night that we shot how many, I don't know how many hours. Like it was kind of like I think we shot some scenes with Bob or something, and then we were like getting down to this place where it was like, oh, we pick this up later, or we.
Uh-oh. Little tech difficulties. One sec. I don't know if that's showing up on our screen. We knew it was going to happen once.
I think I said like, why don't we just shoot the rest of the scenes tonight? And we shot for like. Do you remember how long it was? It was a long.
Was that the night that we shot sort of all your single stuff? Sorry, you cut out a tiny bit there and just popped back in. But
Yeah, I just moved. Hopefully, it's better. Yeah, I'm mentioning the night where like we shot some stuff with Bob, and I think he went, and then we're like, well, we've got all this single stuff. We could just keep shooting, and you were like, let's just go home. Like it's all good. Let's just go home. And I just kind of was like, didn't want to leave, and just wanted to hang out on set and like keep shooting the movie. So we just shot. I don't know how. Do you remember how many hours it was? It was a long night.
I think it was, I want to say 4 or 5 where we just shot everything because I think all those inserts, wasn't that the night where we shot the inserts of you waking up, you at the mirror,
Yeah,
and some deleted scenes that never made the film? But that was just like all,
yeah,
let's go puzzle piece crazy and pick up literally
yeah. That was
everything we
fun.
need.
That was
That
really
was
fun.
awesome.
Yeah, that's a big highlight
Um,
for sure.
yeah, it was very much that like guerrilla filmmaker energy where it's just like, screw it, let's just see what we can capture tonight.
Yeah, I think that, and then
Um,
we had the big final scene at the end of the movie, and I don't know, something about like the way that I had prepped like psychologically. I didn't imagine Bob being there, and then Bob was there, and I just like couldn't do it properly. Like it wasn't coming, and then it was like, well, let's get Bob out of there, and then it was like, and then the next take it was like there, and I was like, oh, thank goodness! Like it was like the first time in the movie that I was like, I'm gonna ruin the movie right now.
well, that scene kills me because I was watching some of the first takes of that recently, just sort of looking through some old footage, and it is night and day between like those first couple of takes, and then once we figured out what wasn't working, it's just a completely different film.
Yeah, it's
uh,
crazy. It's interesting.
what on the flip side of that, what was sort of the most the difficult or challenging aspect of making this for you?
I mean, since it was like essentially my first feature, I think all of it was challenging in the sense of like not knowing, like just coming from theater and going to film.
Yeah.
And I think sort of like trying to just trust that if you just do it, it'll work. I don't know. I think that was hard. like not, and also not like hoping to get someplace in the acting, like being like, oh, this is my goal, I want to get here. I think shooting Afraid to Speak was where I sort of learned near the end of the process, being like, oh, that's not a good idea, actually. I shouldn't do that. So I think like learning that was a big, it was all quite challenging that way, in
Cool.
like the best way. Like, like I learned a ton. Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. One of the biggest changes during filming was when we were, and I'm going to try not to spoil what the context of the scene is, but the scene on the rock between you and
Yeah.
Bob, where we showed up that day, and our original plan was to sort of shoot this in one way, where Sam was kind of pushing you towards spoiler of the film.
Hmm.
But then, you guys both came to me and said, can we have some time to maybe change this? And you guys like completely 180'd the script in the best of ways. What, how did you feel about that? Coming in and sort of tackling that and changing it, and how do you feel now that it is different than what the script called for?
I, I mean, the thing that was amazing about it is that when Bob and I were talking about it, we are kind of like, I was saying to him, like, I'm kind of nervous. I don't feel like I am. I don't feel like I've got it. Like, I like the sort of through line of the scene. I haven't figured it out yet. And Bob's like, well, maybe it's because of this and blah and blah. Is that when we came to you, you were like, yep, let's do it. Like there was no the collaborative spirit of like filmmaking that you had, and as the director and writer, just being like, let's just do it. Let's just like let's try it that way. Let's go for it. I felt like that was a really cool learning lesson for me, moving on to like acting in other films and eventually directing myself, just being like, oh, well, you can completely change something on the day if it actually is for the better of the film. Like that was really cool. Yeah. And the scene came really naturally after that too,
Yeah.
in an odd way. Like the first take, it was like, oh, okay, now we get the scene. Yeah.
I remember when you guys came back, and I think I asked you, like, okay, just run through it in a little bit of a rehearsal way. And then I just sort of watched it. It completely changed the way that I wanted to film it, because I sort of just leaned up against a rock and I watched you guys from afar. And my original plan was like to have this thing sort of fast paced and stuff, but just watching the stillness and letting the chaos be the words and not the actions of the camera itself. You guys completely, in the best of ways, challenged me to change this, and it came out so much better than I think it originally written. So I'm
Cool.
thankful for you guys actually coming to me, because I like that collaboration. Clearly, it worked out. What was it like working with Bob and Paige on this?
Oh, it was great. I mean, this was the uh like the first like thing that Bob and I really worked on together, and we've gone on to like work on a bunch of stuff together. So obviously we created like some sort of weird friendship bond during this that we like hold, like like I kind of consider him like my brother in a way from, and this is where that kind of started. And then Paige and I had been in school together at Dalhousie, so it was awesome to like come out of, it was right, it was the summer that we came out of school, so we kind of came out of theater school and then got to work on this movie together, and then she moved away. But but it was really great, like to work with someone who was already a friend and then to make another friend in the process, like, and then like also like you and I and Chelsea had already becoming friends because of Bring Me Home,
Yeah,
but to like solidify that friendship was, yeah, it was awesome. Like that's, it felt like a film camp in a way.
actually, that's a very good way to put it. I remember you were the first one that I talked to about casting Paige, because obviously I knew that you knew her. I think it was on the car ride home from Bring Me Home. I was like, do you know this person? It's like, oh, yeah, I absolutely know this person.
Yeah.
Um, what were your thoughts when we, said cut for the final time and production was over? Do you remember?
I don't exactly remember, but I do remember feeling sad. It's just like, really? We have to stop now? Like, okay, well, when do we do this again? Sort of thing.
Next
Was the
weekend.
feeling more like, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it was that kind of feeling of like, wow. And also just being sort of like, there's this weird fear that I think you have as an actor too, and I guess as a director, I don't know, as everything, where you're like, okay, well, we finished shooting, and unless we have the capability of doing pickups, that's the movie.
Yeah.
There's nothing more I can do to make the movie better now, until we get into the editing room, and then of course you can make the movie better continually in there. But like in terms of production, it's like, no, that's it. We've done everything. There's nothing else we can do right now. It's kind of terrifying, but in a good way. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. When was the first time you saw the film? Do you know?
I don't know. I think you must have brought us in for a screening at some point.
I might have,
I
yeah.
can't remember.
I was trying to rack my brain
Yeah.
about this because I know Paige first saw it at the Truro Film Festival, but I couldn't remember when I first showed you.
I
When
think it was before that. I think we were doing pickups and you showed me a bunch of it, but I didn't see the full thing yet.
Right, right. How did you
Yeah.
feel about seeing sort of like, what we shot edited in a way?
It was crazy to watch something and be like, wait, this is a movie now. Like this is something that starts at a beginning, goes through a middle, and comes to the end. Like, okay, that's weird. Like, and I mean, also like so hard to watch yourself.
Yeah.
Just be like, okay, like what are you doing, Taylor? Like, you big goof. Like, why did you do that in that scene? Sort of thing. It's hard, but it was so exciting. I mean, like this. I think I saw a good majority of it while we are doing some of those pickups in like the winter after we had shot.
Mhm.
So it's the first, it's quite literally, I think, the first thing I'd ever seen myself in.
Oh, that's crazy. Wow.
And it was really exciting. And to see like, oh, on the day when Dylan was like, we're going to shoot this because of this. And I'd be like, I understand like the theory. To see it in action, like was like, oh, that's cool. Like I get that now. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Context of it.
Yeah.
How do you feel now knowing, it's been a long road to get here, 6 years since we filmed. How do you feel knowing that, in 4 days it's out, publicly, worldwide, free for everybody?
It's so weird to release a movie 6 years later. Like, it's like so much has happened. We're all such different people and have like grown in so many different ways. So it's like, it's kind of cool because the great thing about film is it puts like what do they call? It's like a timestamp or like whatever you call them. They're like those things, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's kind of cool because it's like, oh, this was a moment in time. And like, I think for like Paige and I, Bob had been working before that, but Paige and I like being like one of our first things we've done. It's pretty cool to like reflect back on that and be like, okay, 6 years ago, this is the first movie we made. Like, that's kind of neat to release it. It's also terrifying because I haven't watched it in so long, and I'm like, like I'm excited to watch it. Bob and I are gonna get together and watch it. I'm terrified.
Oh my God,
and excited
that's
at the same time.
Last thing before I sort of talk about something else here as we wrap this up. What would you like to see the legacy of this film be, and what do you think is the importance of a film like this?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because like long term, it's like there's a great place too for this film in the education system too, like in some way, like for teens or such or universities to play the film because it talks about depression in a very specific way. And so I think like it'd be great if it was shown at schools and things as well because like the schools are talking about mental health more and more and.
Yeah.
It'd be great if this was part of that, I think. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm hoping this thing has a very unique legacy going forward because it's sort of this double-edged sword where I wish it was irrelevant by now, but it isn't. So hopefully it helps that path of understanding.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It makes people feel seen. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we leave here, I want to say something about another film that's not afraid to speak. And I want to congratulate you on all the success of Bone Cage because it has been a dream to watch what that film has done. And I know I told you this privately in an email, but I just want to say this too. I think what you have been able to do with your ability to adapt and to never find empty time and just to always be moving forward, I think it's fully encapsulated in Bone Cage. And I genuinely believe this. And if there's any filmmakers in the chat here right now who are in Halifax, I mean this as a whole blanket statement. I think you've raised the bar for all of us in terms of a unique story and a production that is just wholly Nova Scotian, but also worldwide appeal. And I want to congratulate you and the entire team for accomplishing something that I genuinely believe will go down in history of the Nova Scotia film industry.
Well, that's very kind. I feel like there's a vast number of Nova Scotian filmmakers who are much more talented and made better films than me. But I appreciate that. That's very, very kind of you. Thank you.
It's I can't wait to see it again. I'm really excited. If for those watching, if you haven't seen it, try and track down the next screening of Bone Cage, because it is really, really phenomenal. So Taylor,
Thanks, man. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you.
thank you for giving us so much for this film, for being patient with me as a very young filmmaker, pushing me in the best of ways. I mean, like I said, if you hadn't walked into that audio studio and called me out of my BS and forced me to make the film, I'm not totally convinced it would have happened, but you did, and you made me a better filmmaker from it. And I very much say this with a lot of confidence that I am 100% sure that no one on the planet could have made Nolan what Nolan is. And I am very happy that the words that I wrote that were coming from a very personal place were able to be filtered through you, in the way that you did. So thank you for everything you gave this film.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me be a part of it. I learned so much, and it was such a good experience. Yeah. Yeah, it was such a good experience.
I was sort of joking with Paige yesterday. It's going to be funny 40 years down the road to sort of look back at this little like time capsule of, hey, this is where we all sort of got on the road together.
That's the word, time capsule.
There you go.
I was looking for time capsule.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. Take care. And we will talk very, very soon.
You too. Talk soon, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, that was Taylor Olson, who plays Nolan in Afraid to Speak, which will be coming out fully worldwide for free on November 23rd, 8 p.m. at riverpointstudios.com. I want to thank him for everything he gave the film. He is obviously a huge part of this film, and I'm very excited for you to see what he brings to Nolan in a very, very intense, very important, and very personal story that is Afraid to Speak. We will have one more live coming to you with Bob Mann sometime next week. Once we know the exact time, we will let you know. And for anybody who's just popping in or missed this live stream with Taylor Olson, I will be uploading it later today to YouTube and Facebook as well. The video on demand, sort of this version, this replay will be available on this Instagram immediately after I sort of exit out of this. So if you want to watch it, please feel free to watch it. But until then, we still have a few little things to share with you. New screenshots, new sneak peeks, one more scene preview of a very intense scene from the film. As well, on Sunday, November 22nd, we will have our final poster for the film and our final trailer for the film before its release, November 23rd, 8 p.m., birdpointstudios.com.